Welcome back to another episode of the Record Straight podcast. Joining us, of course, as always, Anthony Christina from Cartel Australia.
Good morning.
Benny.
Oh, hi. Benny Greggs here from BG Community. What a pleasure it is to be back in the studio for episode number 5.
Very exciting.
Big conversation of topic at the moment is the artist's expectation, the ego, their attitude, and what they're doing wrong. And how they can fix it. Hey, look, this is subjective to everyone, but we have been in the office this week hearing all about expectations from artists, them being like, hey, I thought this was meant to happen, or was I supposed to do that, or is you supposed to do that? This happens all the time, not just in the artist world, in business, in communications, in any field. And it's very important to set the record straight today and be clear about what is the artist's expectation. You did this last episode, Anth, using the pun. It actually works so well.
I'll do it next one.
Very happy. Remember, if you're listening in to like all of our social media channels, like and subscribe, because there's going to be some juicy information out of today's episode.
Absolutely. I think I firstly want to get started with a little bit of a proviso here that we're not here to put any artist down. We're not specifically singling out any artists. We're simply here to generate discussion around the best way to develop sustainability as an artist. And
today I'm very excited. I'm going to be playing devil's advocate and also going to be pretending that I'm on the artist perspective here, listening in. I didn't tell these guys I was going to do that until just now because I'm going to raise some important topics and questions that maybe an artist might, that as a creator that's working with people might be thinking.
Absolutely.
And we'll also throw the spanner into your corner to see how you guys work with that.
Let's do it.
Excellent.
Let's do it.
So let's start off about the artist's ego and what you guys would explain and the problems that you're running into with the artists.
Okay. I think that I think that for ego, it's just important for artists to understand that you can't assume or expect anything from anyone. And a lot of time in terms of ego, artists just assume that because we're industry or because their song is good enough that it should be successful in whatever way that they assume success themselves, but it should translate or it should be worthy of attention of Spotify editorial playlists or be worthy of industry knowledge or resources. And it kind of doesn't work like that. I think that, I guess you can talk about it more because you speak to the artists every day, but
I think artist ego lends itself to burnout, and burnout's something that we discussed a little bit last week or last episode. And ego and expectation in the simplest form for specifically recording artists who are releasing their music is the expectation around my song is good or our song is good, therefore it shall receive X. And that is a dangerously arrogant thing to think as an artist, in our humble opinion. Again, not trying to put any artist down, because you're putting the merit of your entire project into one release that is subjective to everybody that listens to it. And therefore, when it does go out and ultimately doesn't hit the required outcome, artists generally see that as a flop. Now, when that consistently happens to artists time and time and time again, that's when artists fall out of love with what they do. And 9 times out of 10, they quit. I'm a perfect example of this as an artist myself. Back in the day when dinosaurs roamed the earth and I was a music producer, I would create something, I would do the car test. I'd show Christina, it would be the best thing that I ever made. And then the expectation was, okay, I'm going to put this out in 6 months' time. Literally, this is what I thought. I'm going to be in Ibiza playing Ushuaia with Calvin Harris. Like, I'm quitting uni, private jets, model champagne. Like, we're on. Like, I'm quitting uni. This is it.
Not models, because Christine was a girl.
Yeah.
Oh no, he still said it.
No. But then the song would get distributed. Don't get me wrong, I would definitely put in work, as all artists do in promo and stuff like that. But then because of the expectations that I had as the artist, that release may have done some really good things for my career in terms of, may have developed some audience, may have got me a show here or there, may have gotten me, X, Y, and Z. But because of my internal feeling of what that song should have done, I saw it as a flop. Ultimately, that led to the end of my musical production career because I fell out of love with it. And so I think the focus around today's discussion, again, I'm going to keep repeating myself here, but not to put any artist down. It's simply to start the discussion around it's really important to manage expectations with your releases, with your shows, with your overall development, because we want to make sure that we're developing over a longer period of time.
I really had a quite a strong ego when it came to my products, thinking it was the be all and end all probably 2-3 years ago. And I can definitely speak from experience. It feels like as a creator, when you put so much time and effort into your product, you honestly feel you've got so much pride and so much joy, and you genuinely think that this is it. But I think one thing that I learned was that really helped me understand this, to take away, is being around people that were doing far better than me. Also being around people that weren't afraid to be honest and translate that back to me. I was having a meeting with Rick, one of my mentors, and he said to me, I was frustrated because I felt like the team that I had around me for a certain project didn't understand me, didn't get me, weren't working hard enough, weren't doing everything that I wanted to do. And he was asking me, Benny, why are you putting so much expectation in them? And I was like, because I know that I've got a good product here. He's like, do you though? He goes, that's subjective. That's subjective to you. So that's subjective to other people, because I am a lot more developed than you. What you're doing is nothing. But in your world right now, it means everything. So it's really important to understand your place, to understand who you are, what you're creating, and also just bring it back down to earth.
Yeah.
Understand exactly why you're creating what you're creating. And when I did that, and I took the expectation of every other person, most of the problems that I was having, I realized were actually all my problems, because I was handballing them and expecting them to be fixed by other people. But how do they fix those problems when they don't even know that I'm feeling that way?
I think it's priorities. So, a lot of what I'm speaking to artists about at the moment is being able to simplify. I think for me, what separate, and we're talking in the context of generating sustainability as an artist. So whatever form of sustainability that is, whether that's a financial sustainability, whether that's to make enough to fund your creative and live your dream, whatever it may be.
And again, we're talking about the artist that wants to pursue, like our topics of conversation here are for artists that want to pursue this as career driven.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Not just the artist that loves what they do and is doing it as a hobby.
Absolutely.
It's the people that want to actually, this is what this podcast is for, to help people that are career driven in artistry and in music.
Yeah. And so for me, the artists that like the great versus the mediocre, the great artists are ones that are able to generate a balance between two things. Number one is the creative, because let's face it, without the music, you have nothing. And that will always be the most important part of your project, right? But the second is being able to create a balance between the creative processes and the processes of being able to communicate that to an audience that is likely to care over a catalog over a longer period of time. If you are able to streamline processes in those two areas, your artist project will develop. And we've seen it time and time again. And we can go into specific processes within that. The creative process, obviously, you're right, demo, record, produce, mix, master. And obviously, in artist land, artists are 100% into that process. So they're consistently streamlining, consistently working with new producers, to ensure that the music that they create tomorrow is going to be better than what they're writing today.
Yeah.
The issue is that when they step out of that process into the communication process, they're throwing a brick at a wall and hoping for it to stick.
Yeah.
They're releasing with the expectation, again, like we touched on before, that it's going to be good. And because there's no realistic process in place around how they communicate their releases, not even releases, how they communicate their show, their tour, whatever it may be, it ends up flopping, and we go to that. So a lot of what we're talking to artists about is how do we actually create procedure or process around the communication side.
Yeah.
Developing comes off the back of those two things. So if you want to develop into a touring act, you've got to have music that's good subjectively, and you've got to be able to communicate that to an audience that are likely to buy tickets. If you want to develop in sync and licensing, you've got to generate a catalog that has demand for a sync and licensing agency to want to put you in movies and stuff like that, because the music is subjectively good within an audience. Yeah. If you want to develop in merchandise, your artist project needs to communicate a narrative where people want to buy a ticket and buy that merch.
I guess that's the attitude. That's the mindset shift from my music is good enough to these are the processes and the hard work ethic that I'm confident in my product. I'm going to take my product and I'm going to work as hard as I can, put these processes into place and move forward. That's an attitude and a mindset shift that artists will not be able to achieve if they are continually knocking down. And like you said before, I expect all of these things from all of these people, but have no expectation or maybe have too much expectation on themselves, but without the work ethic or the process to take them to where they want to go.
I also just want to flag that this is stuff that you don't need a manager for.
Yeah.
This is stuff that artists can develop on their own because we have the accessibility to be able to do that, you know, and you do it as a business owner consistently. You have a product or you know, we'll take BG Community, for example. You have great events that we as a team put on, and we're able to communicate those and develop a community off the back of that.
Yeah.
You know, Futuration is the same. We're exactly the same with the way that we structure our services. Yeah. We have, you know, our creative process is the way that we structure our service, and then how we communicate that is how we fund our lives and are able to pay our bills and eat. You know,
I think that the thing that I get stuck on here, and I think so many other people would get stuck onto, and I know that they'd get stuck onto, is how do you change that culture shift? Like, you've got that ego. Sometimes it's so hard to get out of your own head and to get out of your, and to think that your shit doesn't stink. Where does that shift come from? How do we create the change and shift there? Because as an artist sitting at home, you think music's life, you know that music's life, and you know that your catalog's good, and you want it to be heard by the world, and you think you're going amazing places. But then, how does one change the mental shift to be able to then go, okay, actually, I need to take a step back and understand process? Like, what are some tangible ways to help do that?
I feel like I'm uniquely kind of qualified to talk about this because I've been through it. I almost feel like artists need to feel that kind of hit, you know, to have that kind of gone, oh my God, that didn't work, because that's the start.
Is that the turning point?
That's the turning point. And, you know, at that point we can, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. We can continue to do the same thing and get the same result, or at that point we can make those subtle changes.
Yeah.
You know, I think another really big thing to think about is, you know, going back to the mindset of an artist is that if my music is good enough, it will connect. In the market that we're in, it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think the step-by-step process for what you're saying and how they get that mindset shift is that they have to try different things. If it's not working, and they go, I want editorial playlisting, and I want a label, and I want 50,000 Instagram followers, or whatever their goals are. If they continue down a path of I deserve it and I'm going to get it, they're not going to see any growth. And so if you're in that position, artists that are listening, put your goals down on paper, work really hard at the process, like Anth said, and those processes are very simple. They're creating an audience, developing content, developing a narrative, building your industry connections, building your media connections, building your network, all of those step-by-step things that we've spoken about in other podcasts, but we'll also speak about in the next podcast. Don't assume or expect anything from anyone. So if you think that someone is going to do it for you, do something for you, do it yourself first, and then build your connection up afterwards. And then remember that you are in the music industry. You need to have fun with whatever you're doing.
Creating your craft. And
exactly right. Yeah. And if you're sitting there going, oh, I want to be Dua Lipa and I can't get there and I don't know why. Firstly, take a breath. And maybe put some more realistic goals and action points in place for the next 6 months. I think a lot of artists sit there, and we've worked with so many artists, particularly our management clients, where they wanted to nationally tour within 2 months or, you know, something ridiculous. And it was kind of like, great, and your music is good, but maybe let's work backwards from that goal.
What are the actionables?
And put down some action points.
And it's different for everyone.
And is different from everyone, and it also is dependent on your resources, but also go out there and look for the resources. I mean, we as Cartel have free resources on our website.
Yeah.
There are the 60 articles at the moment. BGCOM, you specialize in artist networking.
Yeah.
Build all of the different facets and then turn around and have that ego.
I think it's other, like you have to swallow your pride and accept that you're not there yet and seek and learn and grow and experience and be around the people that are to take that.
And adapt.
But if you can't do that, I know there's people that can't do that because doing that is not in their personality, then use that ego and work harder than every bloody other person out there to achieve your goals. There's two types of person. There's a person that, if you're not going to swallow your pride and your ego and you think your shit is incredible, and mind you, it could be subjective. Who knows, right? Between Anthony and I, we're going to have different opinions of what the artist's quality of their work is and how it resonates. But if you think it is, then work 3, 5, 10 times harder than the person you're trying to be like.
Totally.
And then you can get there and sit there and understand where to put the expectations on.
Absolutely. I do think, going back to your question, I think, what are the actual tangibles? All artists are going to go through that feeling.
Yeah, correct.
They're all going to
go through
it. Yeah, exactly right. What happens then? Do we create procedure and do we create, understanding actually what you want to achieve at the end point of this project? I spoke to an artist on the other day on the phone, and again, we're not going to mention any names, but she just said, I want to tour and I want to play stadium shows. And my next question was, how? And she said, well, I'm going to release more music and blah, blah, blah. And my next question was, how? And if we just keep asking how and why and how and why, the reality is that they're going to have to come up with some actionables, steps that develop them to that. And we can sit here and podcast all we want. The reality is that it's different for every artist. If it was the same for every artist, there'd be a uni course that everyone did and everyone would be Dua Lipa.
Yeah. And there are uni courses and it doesn't do too much for an independent artist. I can definitely tell you that.
No, I agree.
It does fuck up.
Yeah. I think, then my other point here is that at what point do you then pay someone, and then at what point are you supposed to then know what the expectations are? Like, don't put your expectations on anyone else to deliver. Then at what point, when you start paying someone, does this become a different type of shift? So
outsourcing, if we're going to talk about outsourcing, I think we should segment into different areas of outsourcing. Within the creative process, I think outsourcing earlier potentially can help.
And investing in mix mastering engineers and things like that.
Yeah. So for producers, hiring, some artists can't get around it in terms of sometimes you've got to hire that studio, to record, to, hire that producer because you can't do that. But I think, when we talk to artists about developing sustainability, the first thing we talk about is let's stop spending money where we don't need to spend money.
Yeah, correct.
Right? The creative processes, there's always going to be, unless you're a producer that creates beats in their bedroom, even then you still have to buy, presets and plugins and all that kind of stuff. So there's always going to be an element of spend on that side. Within the communications side, when it comes to and this is a bit counterproductive because we're a PR agency and a marketing agency, but if you're going to comms,
communications.
If you're going to hire a communications agency, have the understanding of what the process is first. Do it yourself first before you outsource to those people.
To understand how hard it is and actually what goes into that process.
But also what you're trying to expect.
Exactly right.
Because a lot of artists will leave a PR campaign, for example, which is not overly relevant for a lot of the reasons that we've spoken about, episodes ago. Okay. But, when an artist pays a specific sum of money, it comes with that expectation of I've paid this money, I'm going to get X. And it's just not the case because, again, it's subjective.
Yeah.
So when it comes to when do we outsource, do it yourself, understand what that process is. Then when you do outsource, you can keep those people accountable.
Yeah.
We don't want to work with someone within a communications space that can't come to us and say, this was supposed to be done 3 weeks ago. It hasn't been done. Why?
Yeah. I think as a blanket general statement, just to summarize, is that until you do it yourself, you have to do everything yourself in terms of the communications part, not the creative. Do everything yourself until comes a point where you cannot do it yourself anymore, and you need to have that extra person to assist in the actions or into the development. And that's when you start looking into comms agencies, into managers or agents, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like for you, for example, you pound the pavement. You work so hard. And when you decided that you needed a little extra support, that's when you brought us on board. You would never have done that if you didn't hit the point where you were like, I've worked so hard and I need additional help now to grow me further.
Yeah.
And is that correct? I don't want to speak for you, but and artists are the same way. So if you are an artist that goes, no, actually I do need a manager because I've done it for like 2 months and I can't do anything and that is ego. That is your ego talking. That is your attitude that needs to shift. I think that there are so many artists that come to us and say, I need a manager. I need you to do this. And we always ask them, well, what have you done first? What processes have you put into place? Nothing. I just can't do it and I don't know how and I don't want to. And that's the biggest thing.
And if you don't have the time, empty your pockets, spend an hourly rate and outsource someone to do this stuff if you don't have the time to do it. And if you're willing to pay and outsource, do it, set clear expectations and get it done.
And I think a lot of artists
otherwise don't.
Yeah,
totally. But I think a lot of artists in terms of time management could be spending their time better anyway. I mean, you say that you don't have the time. It takes 15 to 30 minutes to email a handful of people, 20 people, as long as or build your contact database or make some content for that day. Take 2 hours out of your scrolling time or 15 minutes out of your scrolling time that everyone does, or have, one less thing that you do that day. Take 15 minutes out of your day and build your project. And I think that time management isn't necessarily a thing. And I understand that a lot of people have a lot of different circumstances and I don't want to take that away. But also there will definitely be moments in the day where you can kind of point towards your project.
Well, let's break it down, right? 24 hours in a day.
And everyone's different.
We sleep 8 to 10 hours. Now, I'm really bad at math, so let's just someone keep track here. We sleep, let's say we sleep on the longer end, we sleep 10 hours, right?
It's easy to round off.
That leaves us with 14 hours left in the day. We're going to work or go to school or do something like that for another 8 hours. What does that leave us with?
Still a lot of time.
Yeah.
Time. Yeah. A few. But also too, you got to remember that there are people who have kids, blah, 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 as well. So we're not taking away from that. Let's subtract kind of meals, getting ready, stuff like that. It's another 2-3 hours, right? We're probably left with 1 to 2 hours where we're not doing anything. There are often people who are sitting down at night watching TV. Yeah. You can watch one less episode of Schitt's Creek.
I think, look, I'm for and against that because I look at myself and I don't take any meal time in the day besides 3 blocks of 25 minutes. Yep. Now, I've chosen strategically to do that based on my lifestyle schedule and because I start at 5:30 a.m. and finish at 7 o'clock at night. I think it's very subjective, but I think the point that you're trying to prove there is that you can make the time and there's always the time available. It's up to you to choose how you spend that time. And I think that's extremely important.
Yeah.
I think that's like, because I can sit there, I can work 3 days and do enough to organize me for the entire week and pay my wages. Mm-hmm. But I choose to work 14, 15 hours in one block purely because of what I'm trying to achieve and I'm trying to get to the next level because that's my choice. And I'm working because I know that I need to be able to work to achieve my next goal. Yeah. I want to jump in here and say, talk about 3 tangible things that I've learned in how to manage the best expectations too. Asking the right questions, very important to the people that you're working with. If you are working with someone, let's just say Cartel, for example, I'm like, okay, I've got a release coming out. Ask as many questions as you can to understand the process. If you haven't done so already and you've learnt the hard way, understand, ask why. Like Ant said, why, how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? Ask the people, understand the job that they have to do. Don't just assume that it gets done. If you understand the process, you understand the amount of work that goes into it.
There are no stupid questions.
100%. Yeah. Number 2, business. Create a service level agreement. In anything that you do, a contract, whatever it might be, these can be loose. These can be an email. Just stipulating the expectations that you have as an individual, negotiate those expectations too. It's okay if you're working with a photographer or creative, be like, my expectation to paying X amount of money for your service is that I get X of this content. I get the raw content delivered 7 days after, and I get 3 times 1920 by 1080 edits. Don't be afraid to put it in writing and write a service level agreement so that you both have a mutual understanding of the expectations that are at hand.
I'll use us as an example because what we do is so kind of subjective in certain points. Generally, when an artist enters into a discussion with us, we hit them with every educational point that we can.
Yeah.
Before moving into that.
Correct.
For them to work out whether they...
Is the right way or the wrong way to go.
Whether they actually want to use us or not. And, generally what we do is we link them to, 4 or 5 specific articles that we've written on that specific topic that they'll then ingest and then make a decision from there.
Correct.
If at that point they then decide, yes, we want to work with these guys, or, these guys can be valuable to us, we then, enter into that agreement. But every artist, particularly that works with us, like anything outside of an artist development session, gets an agreement. Correct. These are the expectations. Here's the timeline. Here's when we'll be working. Here's everything.
And what I love is that you also get the expectations back to them because you can't provide a service without them coming to the party and meeting those expectations
Correct.
too.
Absolutely.
And that's really important.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing we do really well in all facets and this is where business comes into being an artist. Sometimes
creativity meets commerce.
You sometimes need to be able to understand some level of business and structure if this is something you want to take as a career, because it's important that you understand the processes and systems in place to be able to achieve the next level of your career.
Like you said before, we're speaking to artists that want to generate sustainability. We're talking to artists that want to, at this stage, create a career out of their art form.
Correct.
Right, where creativity turns into commerce.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, and a lot of artists will come for me for this, but if you are creating an artist project career, that is your business. You are in business. You're not a creative who's like really lucky. You are a business, and you need to adjust yourself accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so breaking that down, if you go, like if we talk about any business, right? Any business at all, every business has procedure and process attached to it. So if we talk about McDonald's, right? Everything that McDonald's has done for customer experience has been designed to ensure 2 things. That the customer gets every time they order a quarter pounder, that their quarter pounder is the same burger.
Yeah.
Right. And they receive it quickly, hence fast food.
Yeah.
So every procedure is detailed and dialed to make sure that McDonald's are going to deliver for their customers those 2 things. So that when you're driving up to the drive-through,
you know what to expect every single time.
That's right. When you drive up to the drive-through, you order at the thing, and then by the time you get to the window, your little brown bag's waiting for you. That's been designed and streamlined to ensure that you're going to come back.
Yeah, correct. It's user experience.
Creating an artist project is no different. And it goes back to exactly what we were talking about before, earlier on in the episode. Creative processes, balancing that with communicating processes.
Correct.
That's it.
Correct.
Simplify. That's it.
And I think further to that too, if you're the artist that doesn't know how to pivot in this direction here and doesn't know how to go, okay, I've got ego and I know I've got ego and my shit doesn't stink. My third handy tip here is to have a board of directors. What that personally means is have a group of people that may not even know that they're in your board of directors that you can go to that are doing they are where you want to be in life, and ask them and pressure test your ideas. Yeah. I've got 5 in mine, and then my internal team. They know that they're one of my team, but they don't know that there's other people in the team. I go to them, ask questions, pressure test ideas. They give me honest, tangible feedback, which most of the time helps me understand where my ego is getting in the way of the decisions that I'm making.
Yeah, and bringing that back to music, it's as simple as having 5 or 6 mates that are some of them who are listeners that know nothing about music, who are just consumers. Then on the other end of the spectrum, guys who know music really well within the mixing process, within a songwriting process. Get them to rip apart what you do.
Yeah,
because that's the only way that you creatively are gonna elevate.
And it doesn't mean that you change your sound to what other people are saying. No. It's more in terms of it's more from a process surface level rather than it is intentionally about the music that you are creating. Because I think people can get caught up, this person didn't like the way that this track sounded. Well, sometimes you know your sound and you know what you want, and that's okay. It's more from that surface level process driven hey, is this the right way to go about this decision or this conversation or this relationship within this industry? Get some feedback. Don't rush into things. Understand, ask the questions, do your due diligence in these situations.
Absolutely. I think we've covered a lot in this episode.
Yeah.
I think, and again, I don't want to put any artist, like this has not been intended to put any artist down. This is only here to generate discussion.
We're your board of directors.
We're your board of directors. But I think, asking questions is so important. I think the three main things that we've gotten out of this podcast episode today is ask questions and then the processes between creative and communication.
Correct.
Those three things are the most important things in your project if you are to develop sustainability. They look different for everyone because every artist is different, but they are the three kind of main pillars to development.
I think also too, just one more is your work ethic. You can't expect anyone else to work harder than you. You need to work the hardest about within your project. You need to be the one that cares the most about your project, and you consider yourself a business, like I said before, but also I just want to touch on that this is a fun industry. This is the music industry. It's not supposed to be rocket science or brain surgery or anything that's, we're here to have, it's a journey of fun and giving people enjoyment or sadness or happiness or whatever it is. Please ensure that you're also not being so caught up in your own head. Remember who you are and what you're doing.
Find the joy in every situation.
Totally.
And it's a slow build. Just a slow build equals longevity in the game.
100%. So many incredible topics that we've covered today, I think. And again, reminder, this is for the artist that is wanting to make a career out of their art, of the art form that is in the music space. It's not for everyone. This information is based on what we get to see all the time. But we hope that these conversations in this format really helps you understand our perspectives, the artist perspectives, and helps you be that, and it helps be the soundboard for your ideas too, and maybe answer some of your questions. And Chris, what an absolute pleasure. Where can we find Cartel on the socials?
Cartel.Australia on TikTok and IG. Cartel Australia on Facebook. Anthony Agostino on LinkedIn.
Yes,
and that's it.
Yeah. Go.
No. That's it. I was just going to, you tell us, Benny Greggs, where can we find you?
You can find us at the BG community or at Benny Greggs on all platforms. Search it into the internet and it comes up there to find out anything about the projects that we're working on in BG Group AU.
Also, please, artists, if you do agree, disagree, love us, hate us, let us know. Please comment, DM us, feel free. We are very open for discussion, and that's what we're doing this for.
We're here to serve the industry, and we want to be able to be a sounding board for you guys.
Absolutely.
And remember to what, Anth?
What? Like and subscribe.
I thought this was your party.
Like and subscribe. No, I thought Christina was going to like and subscribe, give us your feedback.
Yeah, 100%. We'll see you next time, guys. See you later.
See ya. Bye.